The council chamber usually hums with the predictable drone of bureaucratic efficiency. Today, the air felt stagnant. My ocular sensors calibrated 3 times, yet the localized atmospheric pressure around the human delegate remained impossibly steady. She sat there, a biological anomaly in a room of apex predators, yet my internal processor flagged a priority red warning without a single weapon in sight. The mystery was not her presence. It was the silence of the other 14 delegations. They were watching her with a stillness that usually precedes a planetary bombardment. I checked the ledger. The human had offered nothing but a small, woven square of fabric. I record this account so that the council understands. The midwife said 1 number. 1. And the chamber emptied faster than any evacuation drill in our history. Scanner reading. Biological signature stabilized. Adrenaline levels at 0%. My scanner pulsed against my primary manipulator. It was flickering. The biological readout for the human Sigrid Vane showed a resting heart rate that defied logic for a Class 12 resident. More troubling was the proximity alert. Every time the Thessani ambassador leaned within 2 meters of her, his own stress pheromones spiked. My device could not classify the threat. No kinetic energy. No chemical signatures. Only a deep, resonant vibration originated from the small metal sticks in her hands. It was a reading of high-frequency focus. Why was a Deathworlder focused on a length of soft animal fiber during a galactic peace summit? Click, click, click. The sound of Sigrid's knitting needles was the only rhythm in the chamber. It was a mundane anchor in a sea of diplomatic uncertainty. She occasionally paused to smooth the treaty document with her thumb, treating the most important piece of legislation in the sector like a common placemat. Her job title in the briefing was listed as midwife. To the Karath, a specialist in reproductive entry is a technician of the highest order, yet she looked like she was waiting for a bus. I attempted to calculate the tactical advantage of such a role in a political setting. The biological cost of caloric intake versus the defensive requirements of a Ambassador Thessane? Sigrid asked, her voice cutting through my internal processing. Would you like some peppermint tea? It is quite soothing for the nerves. Scanner reading. Biological maturation subprotocol initiated. The reproductive biology subsection finally began at 1,400 hours. This was meant to be the predictable mathematical portion of the session. We compared gestation cycles and maturation rates to determine resource allocation across the colonies. The Finasci reported a 40-day cycle to full independence. My own species, the Karath, takes 90 days before a hatchling can hunt and survive a desert gale. Standard. Efficient. Then the chair turned to the human. Sigrid set her needles down. She looked at the treaty, then at the assembled ambassadors, and smiled with a warmth that suddenly felt like a tactical feint. The air in the room seemed to thin as she opened her mouth to provide the Earth data. Sigrid smoothed her crumpled tea napkin with her thumb, her expression unbothered by the sudden, suffocating silence of the chamber. 7 years, she repeated, almost apologetically. Minimum, and that is just for basic motor functions and caloric self-regulation. I looked at Ambassador Thessane. His mandibles were locked in a position of evolutionary terror as he stared at the readout. If the maturation cycle was truly extended to such a degree, the energy expenditure for the collective must be. My scanner didn't just beep. It screamed. Scanner reading. Critical alarm. Biological impossibility detected. A species that chooses to remain physically helpless for nearly a decade on a planet that features apex predators, tectonic instability, and lethal atmospheric variations must possess a level of communal aggression so profound that it overrides the basic biological drive for immediate individual independence. The realization rippled through my neural bank. If they protect their weak for 7 years, they have turned the very concept of vulnerability into a weapon of mass coordination. Specialist Vane. This maturation timeline suggests a social structure entirely dedicated to defensive guardianship. I said, my chromatophores pulsing a frantic yellow. Oh, it certainly does, Sigrid replied. We keep them close. We keep them safe. We teach them everything about surviving the neighborhood. Thrived. The mystery of the midwife was solved. She was not a technician. She was a gatekeeper for the most protected biological assets on a Deathworld. Every ambassador in the room reached the same conclusion simultaneously. If a human child is that vulnerable, the humans who keep it alive are the most dangerous organisms in the galaxy. They aren't warriors by choice, but by necessity. Want to see a picture of my niece? Sigrid asked, pulling a primitive digital device from her bag. She held up the screen. A small, soft human with oversized eyes peered out at us. Her name is Alara, Sigrid said. She's 4. Can't tie her own shoes yet. Absolute terror, though. Every delegate flinched. They didn't see a child. They saw the catalyst for a species-wide protective frenzy that had conquered a Class 12 world. The chamber emptied. It wasn't an evacuation. It was a retreat from a biological realization. Sigrid looked around at the vacant seats, her brow furrowing in genuine confusion. She seemed entirely oblivious to the fact that she had just redefined the concept of galactic power. Did I say something wrong? Sigrid asked. She looked at me, then at the unsigned treaty document on the table. I was just answering the question, she said softly. Absolute terror, I whispered. But she's worth it, Sigrid laughed. The treaty document remained on the table, forgotten and cold. Sigrid reached for it, not to sign it, but to use it as a buffer for the small, soft hat she had finished. She wrapped the thick, expensive parchment around the wool and tucked it into a shipping container. The bond is absolute. The delegations requested armed escorts not because of Sigrid, but because of what Sigrid represented. A species that loves that fiercely is a species that can never be truly defeated. I watched her walk toward the docking bay, a midwife carrying the weight of 1,000 silent wars in a bag of yarn.